Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Podstash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. Check out thedankpodstash.com to find every episode of the Dank Podstash, links to support the show via our BitBacker and Patreon, Dank Podstash merchandise, and much more. If you'd like to advertise on the Dank Podstash, email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com. What is up, fellow enemies of the state? You've made it to another episode of the Dank Podstash. Before we get started, we have a special offer for our listeners from friend of the show, author and content creator Shane Radliff of Liberty Under Attack Publications. You can take 10% off your order at libertyunderattack.com using the coupon code DANK10. That's DANK10. And what can you get with that 10% off? You can get books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategies, solutions, and more. His current books include #Agora, Second Realm Book on Strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's very own Vanu, A Strategy for Self-Liberation. That's a lot of strategies, and there's new books up there as well. Definitely check it out. Shane also offers assistance to new authors throughout the publishing process, including editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook productions. So make sure you check out Liberty Under Attack Publications, share your story, find your freedom, go to libertyunderattack.com. I also want to shout out Bad Moon Hemp. Check out badmoonhemp.wordpress.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your handmade hemp needs. I use their beard oil and beard balm. Still haven't gotten that soap yet. I'm saying that before every episode, but I'm going to get some of that hemp soap. I'm 100% sure it's dank. So check them out and get ready for another awesome episode. I had a great time meeting and talking with Brett McQuigg. Enjoy, y'all.
You got
Brett McQuigg. Nice to kind of meet you over the internet. You know, video chat versus
it works.
Random Facebook chatting and commenting and memes. Like most people. How you doing?
I'm trying to be more intentional with my communication, and there's still experimentation and evangelism, I guess. But for the most part, I'm definitely trying to put more energy and effort into things that matter more, and it's a process.
Hell yeah, yeah. It's you get caught up in Facebook, definitely. I wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the networking. Well, I guess that's not true. There's some good peeps, but
well, I have ongoing conversations with multiple people and that have value that I can't find in my everyday life.
Yeah, for sure.
And I have access to the vast store of human knowledge at my fingertips if I just know where the keys are, you know?
Isn't that crazy, man?
It's all what you want to get out of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What do you want to put into it? What do you want to get out of it?
Most people just want to get TikTok
if I would
out
have
of
been
it.
More... Yeah, exactly. And, I just spend more time on that and on myself fixing things and stuff than most people have or even have thought about doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great thing that's missing. So you interpret things through lenses that don't allow you to understand them. So most of what I'm into, most people are interested in because they don't understand how it applies to their life.
Sure.
Basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, you said you're trying to work on more important things other than just hanging around on Facebook and whatnot. What are you talking about specifically?
Well, okay, so personally, I work for myself. It's kind of something I've worked construction, independent contractor. I've done it off and on and part-time and now full-time for 3 years, but I've done it for many years. That allows me some freedom to speak my mind and stuff because there's no corporate structure that's going to hold me accountable for my Facebook posts or whatever, or something like this even. But it's a struggle, so I'm always looking to improve in that area. I don't really want to grow my business. And I'm not getting any younger, so I'm looking to branch out that. So I'm very focused on that, but I'm also focused on what I can do for freedom, to change myself or what I'm doing to have an impact is what I'm concerned about. And so I have a friend and partner that we're discussing doing a freedom conference or expo focused on education and entrepreneurship.
Nice.
Also, possibly a separate or co-joined what's the words I'm looking for? Not non-denominational, but for nonprofit.
Nice.
Nonprofit efforts like the Freedom Forward Foundation is what our name is going forward. But that's all new stuff that we're working on and trying to figure out how we can do it.
Awesome.
And who we need to help accomplish. Yeah, I'm kind of limited. My internet's my phone, so like until I'm sitting behind my desk that just sits here, has a non-working screen and no computer on it. I've been kind of focused on other things, so now it's trying to get away from my phone and actually produce some value to make changes and things. So that's a very rough outline of some of the things that I'm looking on. Doing more things like this. I'm definitely interested in public speaking, teaching. It's hard to do more than I do without making money at it.
Yeah, dude, tell me about it. I wish I could.
I feel like I
stay at home and do all this stuff all the time. Nasally. For sure.
Yeah, I know, and I do. I mean, I don't do TV. I don't do social life for the most part, except my small group of friends and family when they're not busy. But I went through a divorce for years, 3.5 years ago, and then I went right into some surgeries, time off of work that allowed me, and I decided to make some changes, and one of those was just dropping a lot of toxic influences in my life, from
for sure
food, further from everything that you drink in. Mm-hmm. through every bit of your senses. I eliminate a lot of that stuff to help me to center and understand who I am and be able to see the world through, instead, take those lenses off that most people wear, that because they just don't have the time.
Sure.
Or they don't have the energy, they're too scared, that lots of different reasons and traps to keep us from seeing reality. I think voting, as long as you're still begging your master, you're just not going to see things as they are. It's an insignificant thing, even though it's immoral. Your vote just doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter to me, but you doing it just shows that you don't get it.
Yeah, I agree.
and you won't until you really give up on it. I mean, it just opens up when you realize, and you're not looking for solutions from where the problems are coming from anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. Voting is completely useless, I think. I think the whole voting is violence thing is a little misplaced.
Useless, except for a trap. Yeah, except for a trap for your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Except for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it really you just cannot see clearly as long as you have your voting glasses on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's political masturbation, because it feels like you're doing something, but you're not really doing anything.
Yeah, I called it voting is the voting and politics are the fantasy football league.
There you
go. Of politics or whatever, because you feel like you're involved, but you have nothing to do with any of it. You're just a fan, you're just a slave.
Yeah.
It's all there for you.
That's
and that's the thing, is you put a lot of energy and information into it. What's that?
It's much less crass than my example, I suppose. So maybe we'll roll with that one.
Well, you don't want to compare it to masturbation, because that's, as long as you do it in a dark closet by yourself and you don't use lotion or tissues or whatever, that's one of the few things you can still do free.
Well, they put them in a booth.
Tissues to clean up, though. Those are regulated.
To be fair, they put them in a booth.
You got to go home in your closet in the dark.
Well, okay, so I like the idea of freedom conferences and festivals and all that kind of stuff popping up all over the place. I know it's kind of early, you were saying, in the idea phase of that, but I'm curious what you'd want to include in something like that, because I'd like to get something going, some sort of
Okay,
gathering
so
up here.
yeah. Well, so in Tulsa, that's where I'm at, and there's just not any conferences nearby, really. Not anything like an Arkadelphia, an Arcapoco, an Arco Vegas. There's the, what is it called? Red Pill Conference, East Coast. There's something else on the West Coast, and so we just don't have anything in the middle of the country. So there's a need, and I know people that would want to do something that are similar to that. I'm talking about basically a weekend conference. We're looking at maybe shooting for June, first week of June, which is real nice here in Tulsa. Weather-wise, something downtown. We've priced a conference hotel. We're initially going first year for 200, but if we get, depending on who the speakers we lock in, we could expand it to 5. And more than a conference, we wanted to kind of fuse in what people are doing in the education and or entrepreneurship in the freedom realm. And one of the ideas here is to get away from the terms that people get locked up in. And so even though we're not calling it a narco, which I'm an anarchist, a voluntaryist, even though we're not calling that freedom, and we're kind of back and forth on whether it's peace or freedom. They're the same. It's just what markets so that it brings the right kind of people into it that you want to come.
Sure.
And that depends on a lot of things. So I would think, we've talked about we'd like to have Larkin, and maybe Larkin and Amanda do something. Mark Passio would be great. I know he's been kind of burnt out lately, but definitely tailored towards apolitical. We're not waiting for solutions from the government. How can we improve our lives, our communities' lives, our prosperity? How can we build social wealth without, go around the government, bypass, whatever? What are the avenues that we can use to promote freedom? And basically, we're trying to, the ideas we're kind of trying to make government blockbuster. And that's the only peaceful transition we can really hope for, is to make it useless and make people change their minds about using it. Otherwise, eventually there'll be some kind of collapse or something that'll force some extremes.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I'd suggest maybe Shane Radliff, Jason Booth, some of the people over at Liberty Under Attack, and the Vondu Squad. That's definitely good. And,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, putting agorism forward, I think, because that's one of the best ways, I think, to make the government blockbuster.
Well, that's what that's what I do. I'm an agorist. I work for myself for cash outside the system. As much as basically taking back personal responsibility for my life, every facet I can. It's a sacrifice in some areas and rewarding in others, but there's compromise too, because I don't have sole custody of my son. I have to compromise with his mom.
Sure.
So, life is complicated.
Yeah.
I've only known that I was an anarchist, or even really what that was or anything, for just over 3 years now. Now I've been looking, and I haven't been a non-voting interested party for a long, long time. I had perspectives when I was in the military that shifted. And then for a while when I got out, I've been out 15 years now, but for a while when I got out, it was, I was really disillusioned and didn't really put a lot of, I wanted to escape it. I didn't really care. I felt powerless. I felt like I realized my time in taught me that you're not going to change shit. You're going to get compromised and get used and used up. So I went through a few years. I tribute my best friend. My best friend gave me the creature from Jekyll Island to read after he did. Big change there.
Probably a long. It was kind of a long road from when you got out of the military then. But what was kind of the catalyst that turned you to say I'm an anarchist?
Well, creature from Jekyll Island. The Creature from Jekyll Island really started opening me up in some directions, and I started understanding the Federal Reserve part of it, and looking back. And I have a history degree from OU that's pretty much worthless. I mean, you know, I didn't learn anything like I've learned in the last 3 years, even.
Sure.
You know, not even close. You know, and so there was one of the other steps after I read the Creature from Jekyll Island. Researching and reading and hearing about for the first time the story of the USS Liberty, maybe a couple of years later, so that maybe 10 years ago or a little bit more. My son's birth had a big part in it. You know, started paying attention to things like health and things, which led to other things. So very always a studier, a curious. I mean, even like at OU with getting my history degree, I was cynical, but I just I didn't have the resource or the ability to study the things, you know, and I definitely didn't have the curiosity. I was checking a box because I was going right back into the military officer and stuff.
Sure.
So that's how, you know, we float along in life. You know, we trust things to be the way they seem they are, and you never really look at them or examine it. That's how you end up a boomer who can't reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's just
I pick on the boomers a lot.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of punching down, but it's fun.
It drives me nuts. I mean, you know, like my dad drives me nuts. He's an engineer and a scientist, and I love him. And he's a brilliant guy. I have the most respect for him and stuff. And I had a great childhood. He was a great father. But I mean, like trying to reason with him now, he just doesn't understand. He doesn't understand how I've changed or my mind's. He just doesn't. He's too set. You know,
Sure.
He has an opinion on Trump. You know.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy that even through
they just don't get the apolitical, and it worked. The system worked for them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're getting paid off now. They're retiring, and it's all working, and they want to watch their grandkids and stuff. And yeah, they're frustrated with their kids because they can't see their grandkids enough or whatever because they're working too much or whatever. You know, there's a lot of that consequential dynamics of what's happened to our society, and a lot of it has to do with, you know, waiting for a liar to get office and solve your problems for you.
For sure. Hey, do me a favor.
I don't usually smoke inside, but I'm not doing today.
The word. Do me a favor. Tuck that earbud into your shirt and get a little clicking. Awesome. Beautiful. What was I going to ask you? Oh, yeah. So it's really sad that even a university history degree and you feel like you didn't learn shit, because that's one of the things that bothers me quite a bit.
I got context. I got context, but there was no payoff for me to spend extra time and effort to try and prove the main narrative wrong or anything, really. I mean, I did my senior paper on, it's not really a thesis, but it's your capstone paper or whatever, and I did on the War of 1812 because nobody else does that, and it was something I wanted to learn more about. And so that's part of I learned some. I mean, it's just not in comparison. You know, I just wasn't a curious person at the time. It didn't pay off, you know, and it still doesn't in that kind of way that the materialistic, you know, way, being a part of trying to fit into the system,
right?
You know, which is kind of a recurring theme that I've realized, that a lot of the things that I've gotten into for the best of intentions and reasons, and, you know, it wasn't me that you know, that something was wrong with me. It was something that was wrong with what I was trying to do, you know, when I eventually would either fail or bail.
Sure.
You know? I didn't really fail it too much. I've always been able to succeed in different environments, but eventually I would lose my belief in it, and, you know, my motivation and inspiration or whatever, or I'd see it, you know, like the Army, especially seeing the belly of the beast and realizing, you know, we shouldn't be over there in Iraq. That was my last year, was Iraq. The first year in Iraq was my last year my fourth year as an officer.
Wow.
I was going to stay in for a couple more years and do intel, and then I was going to transfer to a government agency. It was my career path that I set when I was at OU. But by then I knew I'd be back and forth to Afghanistan and Iraq for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
I knew it then in 2004. I knew that's what was going to happen. And I was totally disillusioned. I didn't believe in what we were doing or what I was doing. And I didn't get treated real well either.
Yeah.
I got kind of, the Army can be kind of rough sometimes as far as especially officers. You just don't know. Within 5 years, everybody's getting promoted or everybody's getting kicked out. There's no career security for the officers, especially because they depends on the political situation. We'll do drawdowns and kick people out and stuff.
Well, I'm glad you found your way out, and I really enjoy that you took, you're taking time to really work on yourself before focusing on putting stuff out, putting out the teaching and whatnot. Because a lot of people,
Yeah. I mean, it took a long time for me to build up confidence because, like, I haven't published anything. I haven't written. I should be writing. I mean, if I was more, I've said it before. Like I go off of memory. I'm not very organized with it. I spend a lot of time, but I'm very ADHD as far as jumping around from everything from every subject that's tainted, every facet of life, basically trying to identify the truth in it, or whether it affects my life or not. Like vaccines, I mean, that's something I really took it on especially in the last year. I've had questions and I've been reading things for years on it, but not enough to stand up to the doctors and my son's mom and all that, and just to stop what he's fine. That's what she would say.
sure.
So taking on all those things, there's I felt like before I could really speak on it, I really had to have a level of ability to know it, and yeah, you got to go inside before you can go out.
Yeah.
Too. I think a lot of people never do that. They stumble into libertarianism through logic or trends, anarchism. There's a lot of people that call themselves anarchists that have no idea what any of it means, really.
Well, it's important to be the change you want to see too. That's something I say all the time on the podcast, because if people look at you and you're not doing what you're saying, then why would they be attracted to that idea?
Yeah, and I'm doing it with mixed success. I mean, you got to forgive. I'm a single dad, and I've had my son for school week. 5 days a week. I've been doing this the daddy or Mr. Mom or whatever. Kind of. I mean, his mom's around. His mom's in town, and she has him in the week. She's involved, but she works downtown, and it's just work. I just won't trade time with him if I can help it. So I've really sucked that up. But he's in 5th grade. He's going to be 11 soon, and so things are kind of starting to change, and I'm starting to think about other things. But I look at it, and it all fits together. Having the time to raise him, and while I'm healing from all that stuff and realizing reality, realizing the why behind I failed or I bailed at whatever it was.
Yeah. So
I'm talking too much about myself. It makes me.
That's why we're here. We're talking about you. It's all good, man. Love it. This is
let's get into some subjects I know though.
This is the the view into everyday life of different anarchists, libertarians, voluntarists. That's the whole point. So I love it.
So like being the change. I was gonna say something about being the change. So like I can't take all the credit because a lot of life situations and stuff kind of set me up to discover the truths that I have. It wasn't all like me forging forward. I mean, splitting with my son's mom when he was young. And I just heard the cats are. I got the door shut, so they're not jumping up in here, and I hear them at the door trying to stick their paws under. I should film that. It could be viral.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, so situationally, things happen that help me kind of realize, coming at a bad divorce and coming out of a bad toxic relationship with a narcissist, being broke down like that'll make you face, some dark corners and demons and help you be able to see things. But so shifting to trying to, as much as possible, pull back personal responsibility from the state, like not asking it to do anything for you and not, staying away from it in my involvements and stuff. I mean, it's difficult, but like one of the best things is agorism. It's just, keeping your money out of the system as much as possible, and so that's one thing I've taken on. So
hell yeah.
Day-to-day life, it definitely helps when I saw that immediately as far as when you don't have the boss, whether it's a wife or a job, which I had at both 3.5 years ago. I had both,
Sure.
I worked for a Quick Trip, Tulsa corporation that's spread around. I worked for Quick Trip. So they weren't real social media hounds, but there was probably definitely a limit. And I would get reported, or if I were to get reported or something, it could, something could happen. So that, and then being married and being in a bad situation kind of keeps you from speaking out and stuff, or even really seeing anything to speak out. So
Absolutely.
it's definitely been a time of transition and stuff. And at this point, with my experience and knowledge and stuff, I'm ready to do more. I just got to figure out how and what that's going to be.
It sounds like you're on the right track for sure. Well, hey, we hit the boomer meme. I want to see what you think of the boogaloo, because we're talking about teaching and stuff, and that's kind of the opposite of hitting the big luau. What do you think of all this? What do you think that's an effective route? A mistake?
Okay. I think it is. I think the only thing that works is changing the culture, and defiance and disobedience are the foundation of liberty. That's Thoreau. That's Henry David Thoreau. So disobedience is a true foundation of liberty. Changing the cultural attitude about things, about whether the government has the right, really should be making them the enemy that they are. Which a lot of people will say what the best thing about Trump is. I had a post that's I shared Larkin's, and I shared my friend's comment underneath it today. If you want to look on my public page, that covers that very issue. Is the real the reason why people are mad at Trump is just because he doesn't act like he's supposed to. He's still doing the same crap and bombing kids and stuff, but he just doesn't act presidential, And so along the, that's kind of where we're going with culture and with politics. They're connected. I just believe that you cannot affect politics personally, whereas you can culture. You can create something. The best idea wins in culture. Not always, and it's not an isolated thing. Politics influences culture. These fuckers that are puppeteering the politicians are also in charge of all the media. I mean, they all sit on the boards. I mean, it's all owned by the same, fuckers.
Yeah.
So are we cussing? It's
Dank. Oh, fuck yeah, we are.
Right?
Yeah,
it's too early in the day to drink, but I'm gonna have a cigarette.
It's never too early. Yeah, that's a good point. So the thing I see is, I think boogaloo of one sort or another is inevitable. Not necessarily in the way that people are talking about it now or memeing about it now, we'll say, but the state, whether it's its last death throes or whether it's a preemptive attack, when it starts to see that culture change, it's going to happen. I think Shane from Liberty Under Attack posted today an excellent quote from Rayo, the guy who coined the term Vonu and the philosophy and whatnot. It was very long, like a paragraph, but basically what he was getting at was that why fight for a bunch of people who aren't ready to be liberated, who don't want to be liberated? I think if we had a boogaloo right now, that's pretty much what it would be. So then we fall back to changing culture and teaching and leading by example.
Yeah, I think I don't take it seriously. I mean, the Area 51 raid or the boogaloo, but I just posted, and the question was, is this evidence that the cultural, how people think about things is changing? I think it's definitely so. I mean, I think that there's an accelerating shift in cultural attitudes about police and politics and world things. And I mean, people are standing up on climate change. Go to Senator Kennedy, who I follow because of his work on vaccines, but will also do the whole global climate change stuff all the time. And go look up the comments there. A lot of people are saying, dude, stop, stay with the vaccines and stop pushing this globalist agenda. So, I don't think, we're talking large percentages of people, but I think a few percent of the people are, more comprehensively aware of the agenda and the statrix that we live in, and more people are dissatisfied with the prepackaged solutions they've had now for their, you got some and there's definitely some generational differences there too. I really think Generation X and the older millennials, we appreciate the internet. Boomers never turned off Fox News and CNN and MSNBC. They just get on the internet to shout what they heard on the TV and all the young and blame everybody. That's what they get on. They don't ever learn shit. They don't listen to you. They don't learn, and then the younger ones have had it the whole time. And like my son, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm on him all the time because of what he spends his time on. I'm like, you're wasting so much time. You've got the world of knowledge at your fingertips. So there's some generational differences, I think, with how we treat the internet, which I think is the game changer. But there's a window. I think that there's definitely a window before the window's going to close, before teaching and education is going to be, effective to prevent anything or to change anything. I question whether, if they're, watching the liberty movement grow worldwide, I question whether, especially here, if we don't have a unique opportunity to do something maybe that's never been done before, change the culture so fast that the government either, has to respond in some way. Because I'm always looking for the peaceful. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I'm totally down and ready to boogaloo. As far, I get mad all the time and say, I know who the enemy is. I know who they are. I know. Right. My whole life, I've been a bad guy, good guy, justice type of person, and so I was fed a lot of indoctrination, and I joined, eventually joined the army and believed a lot of bullshit, and now I know who the bad guys are.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid of that. I'd rather it happen than what some of the alternatives are. But peaceful cultural change to me seems a lot more realistic than hoping the government finally shrinks itself or reforms itself, which has never happened, let alone with an empire.
Right.
And we're kind of we're 240, how many years now? 243,
something like that.
We're right at the empire destabilization point, basically.
It's the fall of the Roman Empire with Wi-Fi. And looking at mini boogaloos happening in different places, like I wouldn't say necessarily Hong Kong's a mini boogaloo, but it's definitely some unrest. And watching the kind of stuff that they're asking for, it's kind of sucks seeing.
Do you think there would have been shooting? You think there'd be some shooting already if they would have had guns?
Maybe, because they've been shot.
Had some skirmishes.
There's been protesters shot by the cops over there. So, I mean, it might here. Who knows? I think a lot of people are pussies, but there's also a lot of people who aren't. I hate seeing the Hong Kong protesters waving American flags and saying we need a Second Amendment and stuff like that. But at the same time, maybe it's a step, because not everybody's, ready. Like, let's jump right into anarchy. It's what I haven't put my finger down on exactly what I think of that yet, but I don't fear that.
I mean, if I could hit the button, I would mash that sucker right. If that button was here, I would mash it down, and I'd take my chances, because the alternatives are some pretty bleak. I mean, what are they doing in California right now? Are they testing out martial law? No, shutting the lights off. Are they testing that shit out? I mean, they're disbanding the ham. And the ham operators are getting shut down.
Yeah. What I read like one article on that, and I've seen people talking about the ham getting shut down, saying that's not how it works. You can't just shut ham down. I mean, what they're doing is they're taking away their broadcast points. They're going to charge them. They do the same thing they did like to Bundy with the BLM and charging them ranching rights. They're just going to make it so expensive, or your machine guns. They're going to make it so expensive and restricted that nobody will be able to do it. Sure.
Because because I was looking at ham radio a few months ago. They're not expensive to get into, and the prices have dropped a lot. But
yeah, I think it's an important thing to have for anybody who's into preparedness in any way or any shape or form whatsoever. It's ham radio and knowledge of how to use it. I mean, there's so many things, but you got to think too, if the government doesn't want you to have it and they're starting to crack down on it, it's probably a good idea to have it.
Yeah, that's pretty much a general rule. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I wish I had more resources. I'm working on it, because those are some of the things. Like, I don't have a ham radio. I'm set for like rechargeable walkie-talkies and all that, and batteries, and I basically, my preparedness beyond my military gear and weapons and ammo and stuff is a lot of it, I think the most likely thing is you need to be able to stay in your house for 3 days at least. The first 3 days after a major disaster, people are going to be out looking for food, and that's when it's dangerous. You don't want to be out of your house. First 3 days to a week. So if you keep enough food of the stuff you eat anyway, that the shelf stable stuff, that solves a lot of problems right there. As far as having to go out and look for food. We've seen that. We've seen what happens as soon as like the New York hurricane, people were dumpster diving within days, because they didn't have any. All they had was condiments in their freaking fridge that power went out on. So, yeah, and then beyond that, I have, medical and some other stuff. I definitely like to keep, things that, I have a garden. I grow a garden. That was the other thing as far as like, there's agorism and there's, being self-sustaining.
Yeah.
So I keep adding things. I'd like to have chickens at some point. It just depends. It's just me and my son, and it depends if he stays with me or he goes to school with his mom next year. I don't know. It just depends what I'm going to be doing. I might be traveling for work. Who knows? It's always kind of adjusting to things.
You guys do you get snow in Tulsa? You get cold winters?
We don't always get snow every winter. We'll at least get some kind of frost or a little bit of sleet or snow of some kind. It doesn't always stick. We don't always get layers. And then we'll have a winter. We'll have 3 pretty decent snows, 6 inches or more.
Yeah.
So it just depends. It's getting more erratic, of course, because the Gulf Stream. We catch. We're in the tornado alley. The Gulf Stream comes down and it comes up through Texas into Oklahoma. And so it goes from southwest to northeast, and that's what carries the tornadoes. And that's pretty stable. Usually it goes up and down. But what we've been seeing with whether it's geoengineering or it's climate change, whatever you want to believe, is we've seen these polar things push everything, and so we've gotten these pretty cold winters and stuff. Tulsa used to be more stable, more definitive seasons than it is now. It's a little more erratic.
Well, the reason I ask is just because moving from Arizona to Washington into the cold weather, I found a generator, some sort of alternate power source. You got to have that, man. I like the 3-day. I like to ramp it up to like a month if possible, but a week's good too. But goddamn, when the power went out last winter, I was happy to have that generator.
It's not even that hard. If you eat like dry prep stuff at all, chips, crackers and canned goods and frozen things, like meats and stuff. If you do any of that stuff, it's easy to have a month's worth of food for, depending on the size of your family. If it's a big family, running storage problems. But that was something. When I lost my best friend in 2012, and part of that was kind of just knowing what was going on, learning more of what was going on and stuff. Was definitely in the prepping phase and stuff, and kind of learning how to do that beyond, buying a bunch of shelf stable. There's that level where you buy a bunch of expensive food that you're going to sit there in buckets that you may never use.
Yeah.
And I never went to that level because because the timing, I figured, it's just the stuff that we use all the time. It was real easy to have, weeks and weeks worth of food around the house that never goes bad. We got everything, condiments, backups. I just kind of keep backups of everything. I always have a backup dressing or spice or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Bag of rice.
It's an easier way to live too.
Yep. See, look at that. We're going down to the
beans, rice.
Perfect other topics for a Freedom Fest, man. I think prepping is hand in hand with freedom, because you're stuck. You're not free if you're having to beg the government.
That's personal responsibility. It's personal. Yeah, it's taking personal responsibility. I don't think that's a area that most, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of people are deficient in. We see it when there's disasters. The Cajun Navy and whatnot. And people that, organize things and send down waters. And I think, that we're quite capable of voluntarily accomplishing all these kinds of things. The government usually just makes it worse. We see that. And that could be, and that's true on a smaller scale. We don't have real communities. We have not like the traditional sense where you know everybody in your neighborhood, and and everybody comes out and does stuff. It just, most people don't live that way,
Right.
at least in this country. It's unfortunate. It's really hard to counteract.
That would be nice.
Digital's helped a little bit. Like the next door app. I mean, things like that, where you can communicate with people that you don't know in your neighborhood. But I think those have been pretty limited of affecting that. But it's helped somewhat. I returned a dog to somebody yesterday. Somebody's hurt lost dog. So yeah, I mean, some of that's been helped by the internet, but there's a lot of work to be done. I don't know, because I mean, what we're going to see with any kind of future is going to be some kind of decentralized control structure of some kind. I don't, at some point, the centralization will break down.
Right.
What that exactly is going to look like or not, and whether it happens peacefully, if it transitions peacefully or not, I don't know. Yeah. I think that a lot of that's up to us. That's what I'm driven and motivated by, is to try and, not just prepare for it to happen, but prevent it.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
But I don't know. I think the cultural change is happening. Attitudes are shifting. I think we're a long way before I'm not saying time-wise we're a long way. It could happen quickly, but as far as on a tyrannical timeline, I think we're still a long way from people picking up guns and it depends. I mean, you have a few red flag incidents happen and something like that. That could spur off broader action. I think people are ready to do something.
Maybe
a good percentage. I'd say good 10-15% of the population are ready to do more than what they do now at some level. I don't think they're all ideologically aligned in that percentage, because I think voluntarists, we're like 1.5 or 2%, or
sure.
It could easily grow fast, but
yeah,
I think we're still kind of in that range.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think that like you were saying, with the controlled media, nobody's seeing what's happening, because there's already been a couple red flag. More than a couple red flag.
Yeah. No, I mean, it'd have to happen on. That's what I'm saying. It'd have to happen abroad. Well, and then we just had Fort Worth yesterday, or the gal that was just shot through her window because the police. You saw that one?
I didn't see that one.
The wellness call. Somebody called to have a wellness check, and the cop wandered around with his flashlight outside her house and then shot her through the window because he saw a gun laying down in the room or whatever. She didn't know. He never declared that he was police. She didn't know who it was, and he just shot her through her window, killed her. So yeah, I mean, that stuff's happening all the time. But I mean, in some kind of broader level. I mean, and the other ones like vaccine mandates. It's not going to happen. For me, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And please give us Boogaloo brothers, us Boogaloo boys, some nice targets like vaccine teams. Please. Yeah. put them in MRAPs. Let's have fun.
Got to capture those MRAPs.
Yeah, I think eventually we're going to get to that. I think if it wasn't for the organizational limitations of Big Brother spying on everything we're doing, I think we would already be at that level of sedition, subversion, and subterfuge. I don't think we're there yet. I would prefer to raise my son in peace, but I think, and hopefully we can still turn it around, but eventually we're going to hit that level, and, and I'll be organizing to do that stuff too. I mean, give me some bad guys in an ambush, please.
No, that's a good point, man. Everybody wants their kids to have peace. That's why you take on the problems before they have to. We boogaloo for the children.
Yeah, I just, at some point, there's going to be something, and I really think the most likely thing is the economics is going to, set off everything. I don't know what the power controllers will do with that or whatever, but I mean,
they'll shift to something else. Shift to a different world currency. They'll shift to something else, some other country's petro currency.
Well, I know that's in we know the basket of currency thing, and we know what's in the works. There's some leaps there that I don't really know how they're going to get from one to the other without, I don't know what's in the works. Who knows? I mean, I really think the cultural engineers are not ignorant to what's happening in America and what's been happening on Facebook. That's why we've been censored so much, and that's why it's not even really happening the same way anymore. Even kind of more of the same. You get your page too big, they'll shut you down.
Sure.
But I don't think it's gotten kind of stale. Like they haven't done any new real efforts in that realm recently. So it's not like they're not aware of the cultural shift. So I don't know what, and they're not going to want to give up their power. So I don't know what's next, if they're going to shut the lights off or what.
Yeah. Well, it's important to keep communicating because like you're saying, they're breaking it up, and I still, it bugs the crap out of me that so few people are talking about Epstein now that it's a few weeks later,
Oh yeah. It's kind of hard to without new information other than just saying, hey, remember that this is what happened, because it's one of those, it's not like alternative journalism is going to get anything new either.
Right.
I mean, everybody's locked up tight. There's no sources, there's nowhere to get anything new on it if the government isn't going to do anything, and if if they're not going to do committees or something. Sure. And even then, nothing's going to happen. I mean, I expected this.
Yeah.
I expected pretty much something like this. I didn't think he was going to make it to trial or anything.
Yeah, no. Oh, you always hope, but yeah, just the fact.
Yeah, I know. I've been let down so many times. Yeah. I mean, it always there's so many straws that should have broken the camel's back that have been, easily swept under the rug.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that.
Because if that doesn't force the TV to talk about it, they don't.
Yep. No, I'm trying to find how to unlock that key point where people are like, huh, that's weird that he killed himself in prison when he wasn't able to cover things up. And instead of saying, oh, well, let's move on to the next thing. Whoa, let's not. Why did this happen? We can't let this happen. We need to do something about this. That's the diverging paths right there. And it's how to unlock, the track shift, I guess.
So I was training, and I'm geared for an analyst. I was an infantry, but I was going to go into military intelligence beyond captain. And the reason why is because I'm an analyst. I'm good at problem solving and just kicking shit around until it makes sense, or I can figure out the connections. So that's something I've always had, and I was trying to do as a career that I bailed on, but I still do it. And for a long time, I got real interested. And my best friend now is I'm a high school classmate. One of my best friends. We talk all the time. He's just retired out of the Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel. And he had an interesting career, an interesting viewpoint. So we're able to kind of connect all that stuff. And he's now an anarchist. He pretty much was his last year in the Air Force before he retired. So where was I going with that? Sorry.
Analyzing Epstein information.
Oh, as far as what do I follow and what do I put my energy into, and like these big things, like the latest one was with the that he and I discussed on that came up in our text conversation was the Iran supposed missile attack on the Saudi oil fields, which was Yemen, and and what all this means and stuff. And he was kind of right when it happened, he was texting and he was at, we were asking what each other thought, and I'm just like, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. I mean, I've been fighting this psychological war for 6 or 7 years. I remember watching the Boston Marathon and watching them lie and cover up stuff. And I was, at the time, I was playing online poker. So I just pretty much didn't sleep much and watched that whole thing for a whole week, watched the whole cover up and everything, how they blended it all and packaged it and shit, and all the inconsistencies and stuff. And so and then we went right into the Syria thing with Obama. If you remember, there was a big push for Obama to send troops in 2013.
Yeah.
And I thought that two things: alternative media stalled the narrative just enough before Putin swept in and stole limited his actions or whatever. You don't know how much of that's orchestrated or not. But I saw that there is some power there to the alternative media, which consequently reacted. That's the red right into the Russian hacker narrative and fake
Sure.
news narratives and stuff within 2 years, of the next election and stuff. So seeing all that, I'm like, we just have so little power in that realm and information. Staying informed ourselves and helping each other that want to be helped. But as far as they're going to do what they're going to do,
Right.
we need to kind of understand it to a point, but we just is what our influence is, or exposing Epstein, or that's there to titillate us and keep us distracted too. I mean, that's all orchestrated in the narrative too. I don't really trust any of it that we were ever going to get anything more than we got.
Sure.
It's false hopes and it keeps everybody tuned in.
Yeah.
Tune in next week.
Yeah. And you're right. And it's the using the suspicion that comes from that I think is more important than necessarily chasing it down whatever rabbit hole. Using the fact that it's more than just anarchists and libertarians who are interested in this. I think that's great. It's like you referenced earlier when we were talking, the post you made, is this a shift in culture? I commented on that. I said, yeah, Area 51 didn't turn out to be shit, but it's just the fact that people are willing to talk about it, I think, is great.
But yeah, my kids in my son's 5th grade class knew about, they were doing the Naratu. They did a impromptu Naratu thing for the teachers one day, right when that was like the first couple of weeks of school, whatever, out at recess, they were all doing the Naratu run. And they all know what that stuff is. They've heard about that, and they've heard of the terms boogaloo and stuff. So we're influencing our own and other kids with a lot of this stuff that's going around. So that's going to have more of an impact than tried to change what politics or government is. The culture has to change enough to affect that. I don't know if we have enough time or if it's even possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to visualize how do you unwind an empire.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's going to unwind itself.
If it wasn't for morality, I would totally be a collapsitarian.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't bring myself to vote for the collapse.
For Yang or
secure the bag. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Vote Yang in, get that bag, buy Boogaloo guns, buy Boogaloo supplies. That's an interesting strategy.
Buy guns with it. I think that's hilarious. I love that everybody was like suing him for the money like right away and stuff.
For sure. But yeah, we know that's useless. And
how much of an absurd circus does it have to be? How much of an absurd circus does it have to be before people finally like stop selling their soul to it? I talked about at the beginning about like, voting is a mind thing that if you're still doing it, you really can't get past and see things as they really are. But it's also like it's a soul, and it's you're demeaning yourself to beg to get your way. It's asking daddy for permission and shit. And it'd be, how much better would it be if everybody, the people that claim they believed in liberty, and just the Libertarian Party and the anarchists. I mean, what are we going to get? 3 or 4% of the population? How much better would it be if we all said, "Fuck you, and we won't do what you tell me," and we just, mail that into our so-called representatives and shit, or when we tarred and feathered a few vaccine crews or whatever. CPS.
Yeah, man. Crews. Direct action. That's where it's at. On that note, we hit an hour, my friend.
Just attitude. You wouldn't.
Tell me though.
An hour. Wow.
Yep.
I love talking.
What about the attitude though? Let's finish it off.
Sure. I think, it's a good defensive strategy is to make it appear, to present that you're not to be fucked with.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I lived that personally. I'm not a violent or even a gruff person, but I've had to kind of come to terms with people that have told me, it's like, you intimidate. And I'm like, well, maybe I intimidate, people that need to be intimidated.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I won't put up with crap. So on a bigger level, and that's you see the memes and the discussion all the time. The reason why they don't do this here is because we are armed.
Right.
They're pushing the envelope, but the reason stuff that happens in other places doesn't happen here, like Hong Kong, is because we are armed.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it was here, same situation, I think there would have been some shooting back and stuff already. There would have been some violence going both ways.
I can agree with that.
Possibly, I don't know.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that we have that capability and that we're not totally helpless to, like the Hong Kong protesters are, because really, I mean, they have to keep doing that and hope that they don't have a Tiananmen Square situation happen.
Sure.
They got to keep doing what they're doing. They really don't have anything. What are they going to do? What are they going to do more than they're doing now? I mean, without weapons.
You need to figure out how to start smuggling over there. Hypothetically, of course. Fucking A,
I've
man.
seen those memes already too.
Yeah.
Good talk, man.
Hell yeah,
Good
that
talk.
was
Thanks.
fun. We'll have to do
Anytime.
it again. I appreciate you coming on.
Anytime, thanks. You bet. Have a good day.
Hey, you too.
Zombie presidents, what anarchy! Zombie presidents!